Okay, quick assembly of the teardrop camper. All the parts are printed out and cleaned up, deburred and everything. 3/16 rod cut to 100 millimeters. First thing I do is tap the axle through the axle tube. It's a tight squeeze, so you might have to tap it with a mallet to get it through and leave equal amounts on either end. Then the bearings are pressed on so that they're flush with the end of the axle, and that leaves a small gap on either end, and the bearings turn freely. You could press them on either in a vise, or if you take a hammer and tap it down into the bearing. It's a little bit rough on the bearings, but that's an easy way to do it. After I print the hubs, I'll clean all the support out of the inside, and I'll taper this little edge here on the inside so that it slips over the bearing a little bit easier. So I'll press the hubs onto the bearing. I'll start them by hand as much as I can, and then come in and kind of work my way around it, squeezing it over the bearing until the bearing is all the way set into the hub. And you can see it's still got a little bit of wobble there, but I'll press it in some more over here. And once it's all the way in, it'll have little to no wobble. After the hubs are pressed onto the axle, I'll attach the springs, and typically I'll use a machine's M2 machine screw. And this hole's undersized, so it'll make its own threads into there. I'll also put a drop of glue underneath, so I have a glue and a mechanical connection. You could also use a micro screw or something just to screw it on there. Now that the springs are attached to the axle tube, I'll set that aside and put the hangers for the spring on the frame. The top side of the frame has a recess for the floor to sit into, so the spring hangers have to go on that way. Okay, I've attached the spring hangers, the fixed one in the front, and then these two have to be movable in the back. So these are attached with just regular nuts and lock washers since they're tightened down, and then these have nylon lock nuts, so I tighten them down and then back them off a little bit so that this is free to move. Now I attach the spring to the front hangers first, and again I use a lock nut. I tighten it all the way down and then back it off about 2 turns so that the spring has freedom to move. And before I attach the aft ones, I need to put the fenders in here like so. And then now we can flip down the spring. We're not going to do anything with these yet until we get a tire on there. And then I'll attach the aft hangers. Now that the spring and suspension is attached and the fenders are still loose, we'll center it up. I just do it visually, but I like to put a tire on there first and then center up the fenders, and then make a mark on the frame under here, slide it out of the way, put some glue, slide it back and glue it in place. And then that'll be the frame. So now that the frame is done, I take the floor, and this is the floor for the camper. I have different floors for the different trailers. One's a solid floor, one's a mesh floor. And this is going to go in. It follows the contour of the camper. So if you look, these are angled, and this will be the front. So you're just going to snap that in and glue it down. You put a bead of glue all the way around that little lip, and we'll glue it in place. Now at this point I would put tires on, but I've used up all my tires on my other trailers, so I have to get some more tires. The center screw is a 3mm screw In my case, it's just a machine screw, and it screws into the hub. And then the tongue, I've been purchasing these metal couplers, and again, it's another 3mm screw into the coupler. Once the floor is good in place, you can just put the camper shell on, put it on the front, hook it around the front, put it on the back. There'll be 2 screws that go in those 2 holes in the front, and then 2 screws that go in these 2 holes in the back to hold it to the frame. And then the doors, I'm still working on hinges for them, so I'll have that updated in the file. But there's a flat side and a tapered side on the edges, and the tapered side goes in so that it fits flush with the frame. And eventually I'll put some hinges on the front side so that I can open and close the doors. So here it is, all screwed down to the trailer. No wheels. These 2 screws, the holes line up, which is really nice. I'll show you another one here that I printed that has the wheels on it and the coupler. I still haven't printed any doors for this. I like the blue and black. I had some extra blue filament I needed to use up, so if you wanted to, you could see the layer lines in it, so you could smooth it and finish it and make it look nice. And then you can take off, if somebody wanted to detail it, you could just take off the cover and detail the inside of it. I'm still working on adding a galley hatch here on the back, and then hinges on the door. So I'll update those files when I get a chance.